Most men ignore the signs, not because they're blind, but because they want to believe. 7 red flags women reveal, and most men still miss them. They hear the words, see the behavior, feel the doubt, but they stay. Why? Because some red flags don't look like danger at first. They feel like attraction, like curiosity, like something worth chasing. And that's exactly what makes 07 red flags women reveal so dangerous. They don't push you away, they pull you in. If you're a man who wants to stop wasting time, energy, and attention on the wrong women, hit subscribe now. This channel is built to give you clarity most men never get, and we're on the road to 1,000 subscribers. Topic 1. The red flag that sounds like honesty, but isn't at first. It almost feels too mature. She looks him in the eye and says something like, "I'm not easy to deal with, or I always end up messing things up." And in that moment, takes it as honesty, like he's dealing with someone self-aware, transparent, different from the rest. But what most men don't realize is that this isn't an innocent confession. It's a warning. A warning delivered in a soft, almost seductive tone, testing whether he's going to ignore what's right in front of him. A more experienced man learns to listen beyond the words. Because when someone shows you who they are early on, what usually follows isn't change. It's repetition. And that's where the classic mistake happens. He believes that with enough attention, patience, or effort, it won't happen to him. Tells himself, "It'll be different with me." But in reality, that mindset opens the door to a quiet cycle where he starts justifying behaviors she already warned him about. In real life, it shows up in simple ways. She says she disappears sometimes, and she disappears. She says she pulls away when things get intense, and she pulls away. There's no mystery, no surprise, just a man trying to reinterpret something that was clear from the beginning. And the more he ignores those early signals, the harder it becomes to walk away later. Because what felt like a random comment at first slowly turns into a pattern. And once that happens, something inside him starts to shift, even if he can't fully explain it yet. Topic 2. When effort feels one-sided and you try to earn her at first, he doesn't even notice. It feels natural to send an extra text, start conversations, suggest plans, keep things going, but slowly something starts to feel off. He's putting in more effort, investing more, thinking more. And her, she replies when she feels like it, shows up when it's convenient, gives just enough to keep him around. The most dangerous part is that it doesn't feel like a clear problem. It just feels like he needs to try a little harder. That's when many men fall into a silent game, trying to earn her attention. He starts adjusting his behavior, replaying conversations in his head, analyzing every little detail like he's trying to crack a code. Did I say something wrong? Should I have done that differently? Without realizing it, he shifts from choosing to seeking approval. Instead of asking if she's worth the effort, he starts proving that he is. A self-aware man understands that real interest doesn't need to be forced. When there's genuine connection, effort flows naturally from both sides, without that constant feeling of carrying everything alone. A simple example. If he's always the one texting first, planning, keeping the energy alive, that's not connection, that's chasing. And chasing, disguised as interest, almost always leads to the same place. Because while he keeps trying harder and harder to keep things alive, a pattern is forming, one that, if not broken, opens the door to something even more confusing and emotionally draining ahead. Topic 3. She keeps you confused, hot and cold behavior at first. He calls it mystery. Some days she's present, engaged, almost perfect. She replies fast, shows interest, makes him feel chosen, but then something shifts. She goes cold, pulls away, takes longer to respond, feels like a completely different person, and that shift comes with no explanation. That's where the confusion begins, because he starts getting attached to the good version of her, while trying to figure out why that version keeps disappearing. This kind of behavior creates a powerful psychological effect. The more unpredictable she is, the more he thinks about her. It's like a game where the reward is never guaranteed, and that's exactly what makes it addictive. He starts valuing small signs of attention like they're big wins. A simple hey feels special. One good date makes him forget several bad moments. And without realizing it, he's no longer looking for connection. He's looking for validation. A grounded man understands that clarity brings peace, not confusion. When someone truly wants to be there, their behavior is consistent, not unstable. In real life, that means paying attention to patterns, not isolated moments. If she's warm today and cold tomorrow, the pattern isn't warmth, it's inconsistency. And the more he ignores that, the more he gets pulled into something that never really stabilizes. Because over time, that emotional roller coaster stops being just confusing, starts affecting how he sees himself. And that's when the next sign begins to show up, even more subtly. Topic 4. Subtle disrespect, disguised as personality at first. It comes off as jokes. A sarcastic comment here, a little tease there, a small criticism wrapped in humor. And he even laughs, because it feels light, like it's just her personality. That's just how she is, he tells himself. But over time, those small moments start to stack up, and what once felt playful starts to feel different. It's not just a joke anymore, it's a pattern of subtle disrespect. A man who pays attention can spot when respect is missing, even when it's disguised. Because respect doesn't only show up in big gestures, it lives in the details. It's in how she talks to him, how she reacts when he sets boundaries, how she treats him in public and in private. When there's real value, there's care. But when disrespect becomes routine, even in small ways, the opposite happens. He starts accepting things he knows deep down he shouldn't. In real life, it's easy to recognize. Dismissive comments, comparisons with other men, constant sarcasm, lack of consideration in front of others, and the most dangerous part? The more he tolerates it, the more normal it becomes. The line keeps getting pushed, slowly, almost unnoticed, till one day he realizes he's in a situation where he has to defend himself from someone who's supposed to add to his life. And when respect starts breaking down like that, something even more subtle begins to show, something you don't hear in words, but you feel in the space she leaves behind. Topic 5. She talks about other men more than she should at first. It feels casual. She mentions a friend, an ex, a guy from work, all within a normal context. And he doesn't think much of it. After all, everyone has a past, everyone has a social life. But over time, those mentions start to repeat. And it's not just that she talks about other men, it's how she does it. Subtle comparisons, unnecessary stories, compliments that carry more weight than they should. A man who's paying attention understands that the issue isn't other men existing. It's the space they're given and the dynamic between them. But she constantly brings these names into the conversation. It creates an invisible competition. And without realizing it, he starts measuring himself, comparing himself, trying to prove something that shouldn't even be in question. It slowly pushes him into a position where he feels like he has to validate his worth, and that completely shifts his role in the relationship. In real life, it shows up in phrases like, "My ex used to do that," "A guy I know is like this," or even indirect compliments about other men in front of him. It may seem small, but it's not, because communication is also about intention. And when that pattern repeats, it stops being coincidence and becomes behavior. And the more he ignores it, the more it chips away at his confidence, until he starts feeling something different, something more physical, more internal, a feeling that's hard to explain, impossible to ignore once it shows up. Topic 6. You feel drained after being with her? Here's something a lot of men overlook. The body notices before the mind does. He leaves a date with her, and instead of feeling light, energized, uplifted, he feels the opposite. A strange kind of exhaustion, a quiet heaviness, like something was taken from him. And since there wasn't a clear argument or obvious issue, he tries to brush it off. Maybe it's just in my head, he thinks. But it rarely is. A more aware man learns to pay attention to how he feels after, not just during. Because anyone can seem interesting for a few hours, but the impact they leave is what really matters. When the interaction is healthy, there's exchange, there's energy that adds to you. But when he leaves mentally drained, overthinking everything, replaying conversations, that's not connection, that's emotional fatigue. The worst part is how subtle it is. He often only notices when it becomes a pattern. In practical terms, it's simple to check. After spending time with her, does he feel clearer or more confused? Lighter or more tense? More like himself, like he has to figure out who to be to keep her interested. Those answers say more than any conversation ever could, because energy doesn't lie. And when that drained feeling keeps repeating, something inside him starts raising a red flag, even if he can't fully name it yet. And that's exactly where the most dangerous signal of all begins to appear. The one that keeps a man stuck even when everything inside him is telling him to walk away. Topic 7. You're afraid to lose her even without real connection. This is where it gets real and dangerous. He pauses for a second and realizes he's afraid of losing her. But when he looks closer, something feels off. There's no deep connection, nothing truly solid built between them. And yet the fear is there. That's what makes it confusing. Because in his mind, fear of loss should mean value. But that's not always what's happening. An experienced man understands that this kind of fear often doesn't come from connection. It comes from scarcity. From the feeling that this might be the best he can get right now. From the time, energy, and emotion he's already invested. And then something subtle but powerful happens. He stops wanting her for who she is and starts wanting her because of what he's already put into it. It's like watching a bad movie all the way through, just because you've already watched half, even though you know it's not worth it. In real life, it shows up in thoughts like, what if I don't find someone better? What if I'm overreacting? What if I lose something important? But those questions don't come from clarity, they come from insecurity. Because when there's real connection, there isn't this constant fear, there's calm. And when fear becomes the main reason to stay, that already says everything. Because deep down, he's not attached to her. He's attached to the idea he created. And that realization is what separates the man who stays stuck from the man who finally decides to walk away. And that's where everything starts to change. Conclusion: if you made it this far, one thing should be clear. Not every warning comes with a loud alarm. Sometimes the biggest mistakes start with small compromises. Small, it's not a big deal. Small doubts you choose to ignore. So here's the question. How many of these situations have you already lived through and still chose to stay? At what point did you start accepting less than you deserve? Because recognizing these signs isn't about judging her. It's about respecting yourself. There's a huge difference between being patient and putting yourself in a position where you constantly have to prove your worth. And maybe that's what needs to change. It's not about finding the perfect woman. It's about stopping the acceptance of dynamics that drain you, confuse you, and slowly break you down. So let me ask you, are you choosing with clarity or reacting out of fear? Are you staying because it makes sense or because you've already invested too much to walk away? If this video helped you see something you couldn't see before, then it already did its job. But knowledge only changes your life when it turns into action. So starting today, pay more attention, tolerate less, and stand your ground. And if you want to keep evolving, understanding female psychology, and becoming a more self-aware man in your decisions, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. We're building a community of men who don't settle, and we're on the road to 1,000 subscribers.